When an opportunity presents itself, there are certain questions you have to ask yourself. Number one, what do I have? 1 Samuel chapter 17. David has already been anointed king of Israel in front of his brethren. And he was sent back into the bush to look after sheep. And the Bible says, on a certain day, the father came for him and said, send food to your other brethren. And David comes, takes the food, sends it to his brothers, and his brothers who are at the war front. And the Bible says that, one thing I find so funny is that if you read a little bit earlier in the book of 1 Samuel, you will see that the same way Samuel saw King Saul and how he described King Saul, how the Bible describes King Saul, is the same way when Samuel saw Eliab, the firstborn of Jesse. That's how it was Eliab was sort of described in the same way. Eliab is the firstborn that God said, this is not the one God has chosen. Man looks at the outward, but God looks at the heart. So the Bible says that God had rejected Eliab and anointed David. And the Bible says, when David comes to the battlefield, Eliab says, oh, we know you're stubborn, blah, 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 blah. And the Bible says, David ignores him and tells King Saul, I want to fight Goliath. I've been fighting bears, but fighting bears and these type of animals in the wild, nobody sees. And he was not doing it so people see per se. But he gave his resume. I've killed bears. I've killed lions. That's my resume. So this Goliath, it's not anything great. It's not anything great. And the Bible says, King Saul said, oh, if you're going to fight, you have to, soldiers have what they use to fight. Soldiers have what they use to fight. Breastplate, sword, shield. The Bible says when the king gave David his breastplate, sword, shield, all this armor, it was too much for the young boy. It was too heavy. David tried to take a step, almost stumbled, and he said, you know what, king, it's okay. You let me go how I've been going all the time. Let me fight how I've been fighting all the time. And the king said, okay. God be with you. And most people expected the boy to be quickly done with, that Goliath would just finish him quickly. But the Bible says that when David faced Goliath and Goliath cursed David, and David replied Goliath and told him, this day I will take off your head, give you and the Philistines your bodies to the fowls of the air and of the ground, and they will devour you. When David said all that, after seeing this opportunity, what did David use? Did David go in for a machine gun? Did David go in for a great spear? Because Goliath is a giant. You can't use a normal spear to just bounce off his breastplate. No. Did David go in for some special weapon? No. The Bible says David looked at what he had. And he looked and went for 5 stones. That's what he had been using all the time. That is what David had been using all the time. And those 5 stones, one of those stones slung at the head of Goliath. The Bible says those stones killed that man. What is? And I thought about it some time back that for a giant, the bone here is thicker than normal. So it's only God who can push it through. And the Bible says, David knocks Goliath down dead, cuts off his head, has a victory for Israel. But he didn't do it with a sword, shield, armor, spear, bow, and arrow that a normal soldier does it with. The Bible says David used what he had. And this book of Esther, that is the first question that I asked myself as I read. Why did Esther fall into this opportunity that God made for her? Because the Bible says they were gathering all the maidens. They were gathering all the maidens. But when the Bible presented Esther to us in Esther chapter 2 verse 7, one of the things the Bible made sure to mention is that she was fair and beautiful. And she didn't know that that thing, being fair and beautiful, was the qualification God needed. She didn't need to be some sophisticated talker and somebody who had gone to university and had a PhD. She just needed to be fair and beautiful to fulfill God's purpose for her life. That's why I'm asking you, what do you have? Stop trying to be what you are not. What you have is enough. Look at yourself. Some of you have a great voice. Be there. Use that voice. Some of you, when you speak to people, people listen. Use it. Some of you can really write. Write. What do you have? The Bible says Esther was fair and beautiful. For the pageant she was going for, the king did not need to know how many PhDs he had. The king did not need to know how many, like, he didn't need to know all that. He just needed a woman who was fair and beautiful. Because that's why he disqualified Vashti. When he was happy, all his plots were there. He had the most beautiful woman in the world. And he said, my beautiful wife, come. And she said, no. So he needed a replacement who was more beautiful. So that next time when people are there and he says, come, and they all see his wife, they'll be like, mwah, mwah, this is our king's wife. Yes, we are happy. This is very beautiful. To take or to make use of this opportunity, all Esther needed to be was fair and beautiful. What do you have? What do you have? You might not have gone to school so far. You may be like Rahab. You've involved yourself in so many things. You know, that's the funny thing. A lot of people, like when I talk, sometimes I have to just encourage them. Stop beating yourself up. Like you've involved yourself in so many things. You were using drugs, you were doing this, you were doing that. So every time, like you want to tell yourself, like, I feel like I've sinned against God. No. Rahab was the prostitute of Jericho. But what she had was the ability to negotiate. And when she got the opportunity, see, that's why we talked about opportunity last week. When Rahab got the opportunity, she negotiated her salvation from death, and she negotiated herself into the bloodline of Jesus Christ. What do you have? God was not necessarily even looking that she was the most beautiful woman or whatever. Just that gift of being able to negotiate. Sir, you guys have seen that I hid you from the king of Jericho. Please show me kindness. Remember my father's house. Remember this, remember that, remember this. That's all. And now she's one of the ancestors of King David. One of the ancestors of Jesus Christ. Because the little she had, she used it.